Story number 1.
In a small village nestled in the hills of ancient Japan, there lived a young woman named Akiko. She was known throughout the village for her beauty and her kind heart. But Akiko was not content with her simple life. She longed for adventure and excitement, to see the world beyond the boundaries of her small village. One day, Akiko was walking through the forest when she stumbled upon a small, hidden shrine. It was surrounded by a grove of ancient trees, and it emanated a mysterious energy that drew her in. As she approached the shrine, she saw that it was adorned with offerings of fruit and flowers, and she realized that it was sacred to the local mountain spirits. Akiko felt a strange and powerful energy coursing through her body, and she knew that she had been called to this shrine for a reason. She sat down and closed her eyes, and in that moment, she was transported to a mystical realm. In this realm, she encountered the mountain spirits, who took her on a journey through time and space. They showed her wonders beyond her wildest dreams, and she felt a deep sense of awe and wonder as she explored this magical world. As the journey drew to a close, the mountain spirits revealed to Akiko a great truth: that the universe was not just a physical entity, but that it was infused with a mystical energy that connected all living things. With this knowledge, Akiko returned to her village a changed woman. She saw the world with new eyes, and she felt a deep sense of connection to all living things. She spent the rest of her life sharing her mystical experiences with others, and she became known as a great healer and spiritual teacher. To this day, the people of the village still tell the story of Akiko and her mystical journey to the realm of the mountain spirits.
Story number 2.
Once upon a time, in a small town nestled in the mountains, there was a beautiful house. The house was perched on the edge of a cliff, overlooking a breathtaking view of the valley below. It was a house that many people admired and longed to live in. However, no one ever stayed in the house for very long. The first family that moved in were a couple with a young child. They had heard about the house and couldn't believe their luck when they were able to purchase it. The first few weeks were wonderful, but then strange things started to happen. They heard whispers in the night, footsteps in the hallways, and doors opening and closing on their own. They tried to ignore it, but it became impossible when they woke up one morning to find that their child was missing. They searched the house from top to bottom, but the child was nowhere to be found. They eventually had to move out, never to return. The second family that moved in were a group of college students who thought it would be cool to rent the house for the summer. They wanted to throw parties and enjoy the stunning view. They got more than they bargained for when they started to experience the same strange occurrences as the previous family. They thought it was just their imagination until one night when they were all sitting in the living room, and the furniture began to move on its own. They ran out of the house and never looked back. The third family that moved in were a wealthy couple who were determined to uncover the mystery of the house. They hired a team of paranormal investigators to help them. The team discovered that the house was built on an ancient burial ground and that the spirits of the dead were angry that their resting place had been disturbed. The couple thought that they could appease the spirits by performing a ritual to honor the dead. It was a mistake. The spirits were not appeased, and the couple soon regretted their decision. They experienced the same paranormal activity as the previous families and were eventually forced to leave the house. The fourth family that moved in were a family of 5. They didn't believe in ghosts and thought that the previous families were just making it all up. They were wrong. The ghosts were angry and they wanted revenge. The family experienced things like being locked in rooms, cold spots, and a sense of being watched. They thought they could tough it out, but one night, things took a turn for the worse. The youngest child, a little girl, was dragged out of her bed by an unseen force and thrown down the stairs. The family was horrified and fled the house immediately. The house sat empty for many years until a group of paranormal investigators decided to investigate the mysterious happenings at the house. They spent several nights in the house and documented some of the most terrifying paranormal activity ever seen. They heard disembodied voices, saw apparitions, and felt cold spots. They even captured an image of a ghostly figure on camera. The investigators were terrified and left the house as quickly as they could. The house still stands on the edge of the cliff, looking out over the valley below. No one has dared to move in since the last family fled in terror. It remains a mystery and a legend in the small town. Some say that the spirits of the dead still haunt the house, and that they will continue to do so until the house is destroyed. Others say that the house is cursed, and that anyone who lives there will suffer a terrible fate. One thing is for sure, the house is a place of great terror and is best left
Story
alone.
number 3.
One stormy night, a group of friends decided to explore an abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town. The mansion was known to be haunted, but they were all skeptical and didn't believe in ghosts. They entered the mansion, and it was immediately clear that something was not right. The air was thick with an eerie silence, and the old wooden floors creaked beneath their feet. As they made their way through the mansion, strange things began to happen. Doors opened and closed on their own, and a cold chill ran down their spines. They heard strange whispers and felt the presence of something in the room with them. They tried to ignore it, but they soon realized that they were not alone. As they explored the mansion further, they stumbled upon a room that was unlike any of the others. The room was dark, and it seemed to be alive with a paranormal energy. The friends felt like they were being watched, and they couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking in the shadows. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them, and they were plunged into complete darkness. They tried to open the door, but it was locked from the outside. Panic set in as they realized that they were trapped in the room. As they stood in the darkness, they began to hear strange noises coming from all around them. The sounds were like whispers, but they couldn't make out what was being said. Suddenly, the whispers turned into a loud, terrifying scream, and the room was filled with a blinding light. When the light faded, they found themselves in a different room. This room was brightly lit, and the air was filled with the scent of freshly cut flowers. They looked around, confused and disoriented, trying to make sense of what had just happened. As they made their way through the room, they saw a strange figure standing in the corner. The figure was tall and dressed in black, and its face was hidden by a hood. They tried to approach it, but the figure vanished into thin air. The friends realized that they had stumbled upon something truly paranormal, and they fled the mansion as quickly as they could. They never spoke of what happened that night, but they were all changed by the experience. Years later, one of the friends returned to the mansion to try and make sense of what had happened. As he entered the mansion, he found that it was exactly as he remembered it. He made his way to the room where they had been trapped and found that it was still locked from the outside. He tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. Suddenly, he heard a whisper in his ear, and a cold chill ran down his spine. He turned to run, but he was stopped in his tracks by the sight of the figure standing in front of him. The figure spoke to him, but its words were unintelligible. The friend tried to run, but he was frozen in place. The figure then vanished into thin air, leaving the friend alone in the dark. The friend never returned to the mansion again, but he knew that it was haunted by something truly terrifying. The mansion remained a mystery, and no one ever ventured inside again. It was a place of great terror, a place where the paranormal was alive and well.
Story number 4.
In the early 1900s, there was a French painter named Paul Gauguin who was disillusioned with the Western art world and sought inspiration in a more primitive and mystical culture. He traveled to Tahiti, where he found a new artistic voice and a deep connection to the spiritual beliefs of the Tahitian people. One day, Gauguin was exploring the island when he stumbled upon a sacred grove of trees. The Tahitians believed that the grove was inhabited by spirits, and that it was a place of great power and energy. Gauguin was immediately drawn to the spot, and he spent hours sketching and painting the trees and the surrounding landscape. As he worked, he began to feel a strange and powerful energy coursing through him. He later wrote in his journal, "I felt as if I were possessed by a spirit, and that I was painting not with my own hands, but with the hand of some unknown force that was guiding me." Over the years, Gauguin continued to explore the mystical traditions of Tahiti, and his art became infused with the vibrant colors and spiritual energy of the island. His paintings, with their bold lines and bright colors, captured the essence of the mystical and primal nature of the Tahitian culture, and they continue to inspire and enchant viewers to this day.
Story number 5.
In the early 1900s, an asylum was built in the outskirts of a small town. The asylum was known for its brutal treatments and unsanitary conditions, and it was eventually shut down. Decades later, a group of friends decided to explore the abandoned asylum, curious about its dark past. As they explored the eerie building, strange things began to happen. They heard footsteps and whispers coming from empty rooms, and the air grew colder as they descended into the basement. Suddenly, they saw the ghostly apparitions of the former patients, and they realized that the asylum was still haunted by the tormented souls of its past. They ran for their lives, but one of them never made it out alive.
Story number 6.
Late one night, a woman was driving down a deserted road when she saw a figure in the distance. As she got closer, she realized that it was a demonic creature with glowing red eyes. The creature began to chase her car, and she could hear its heavy breathing and the sound of its claws scraping against the pavement. She tried to speed away, but the creature kept up with her. Suddenly, the creature disappeared, and the woman was left shaken and terrified.
Story number 7.
A group of sailors were on a routine voyage when they encountered a ghostly ship in the middle of the ocean. The ship was covered in cobwebs and rotting wood, and it was completely silent. The sailors boarded the ship, but as they explored, they began to feel a sense of dread. They saw the ghostly apparitions of the former crew members, who warned them to leave before it was too late. Suddenly, the ship began to creak and groan, and it began to move on its own. The sailors tried to escape, but the ghost ship pursued them relentlessly. Only a few managed to make it back to shore.
Story number 8.
In a dense forest, there was a dark and winding path that led to a small cabin. Legend had it that the cabin was home to a powerful spirit that cursed all who entered the forest. Despite the warnings, a group of hikers decided to explore the forest. As they made their way down the path, they heard strange noises coming from the trees. The air grew colder and the sky darkened, and they realized that they were lost. Suddenly, they saw the ghostly apparition of the forest spirit, who demanded that they leave at once. But it was too late. The hikers were cursed to wander the forest forever, trapped in a never-ending cycle of fear and terror.
Story number 9.
In a small town, there was an old, abandoned house that had been the site of many strange occurrences. People reported hearing eerie sounds and seeing ghostly apparitions, and no one dared to enter the house. One day, a group of teenagers decided to explore the house, but they soon realized that they had made a terrible mistake. The doors slammed shut behind them, and they were trapped in the haunted house. They heard the sounds of footsteps approaching, but no one was there. Suddenly, the ghostly apparitions appeared, and the teenagers realized that they were not alone. They tried to escape, but the ghosts chased them through the house. Some say that the teenagers were never seen again,